Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It is Wednesday, April 8th, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for being here. We were going to do this yesterday, this same topic, and just decided with all the things going on in the world, all the news items and concerns over some very crazy times, uh, that maybe it wasn't the right time to do it. Thankfully, things looks like have moved into temporary ceasefire mode with us and Iran, but hoping for better days ahead across the board. But it just felt like it was the wrong time in case the worst that we were fearing happened. So thanks so much for coming here tonight, though. Appreciate it. Great to see Alex. Thank you so much for being here. And just want to remind everybody of a few things. If anybody is interested in meeting with me for one-on-one peer support, the ways to do that, to connect with me are beneath this video. I'd love to connect with you in terms of non-clinical support through your deconstruction, deconversion. Very, very open to meeting with you, and we can easily find a time, I'm sure. And I hope I could be a rich help and a blessing to you. For anyone that's interested in doing an interview, I do have a whole bunch of interviews lined up, but I'm looking to keep going with that. So please reach out if you can, preferably on Facebook. My handle's Harmonic Tim. Would love to have you, let me know your story in a brief format, and then we'll get you scheduled and have a chance for you to share it with a lot of people here on the channel. So in terms of the channel itself, it is definitely moving in the right direction. It's growing again now that I'm doing so much. I do apologize for not being as available the last two nights. And last night was a little bit more about, at least originally, about the situation geopolitically, but also my kids were with me. They're no longer with me for a few days, so I've got a little bit of a breathing space to do more. But while they were with me, especially on their last night for a few days, it felt like it was a good important moment to just prioritize them. So, and good stuff. So tonight I wanted to mention, sort of dive into the topic, and this is going to be a live stream where you can jump in and share your story if you'd like about this specific topic we're going through. But I think it's a critical one, but it's a hard one. It's a hard one to deal with because in a lot of our conversations about religious trauma, the main focus is on healing from religious trauma, as if you kind of go through enough stages of grief, you go through enough sessions with your therapist, you go through enough whatever videos and books that help you think through it, you do enough journaling, you do enough walks, that you're hopefully healed, right? You've healed. You're there. It's not perfect, but it's a huge improvement from where you were, and you can look back and say, look how far I've come. But I think one of the things that's important to admit is that there are scars, and sometimes those scars, they can certainly, as scars on your skin do, they can heal over, but they don't really disappear. So tonight we're talking about scars, not the ones you would see on your skin, of course, although I guess that could apply in certain cases here, but really more of the deeper scars, like the scars on your identity, on your personality, on your reflexes, on your fears, on your shame, the way you love, the way you grieve. Some of the wounds that we've been through in our lives, and this is just an intro, and I'll give you the link in a second if anybody wants to jump in and join us here in the live stream. But just a few minutes of a little bit of an intro. I think a lot of our wounds from childhood, from our time in Christianity, they really do, as we go through it, they really do heal, not into just distant memories, but they heal into scars. You might say that they heal into your personality. They scar your personality. Christianity was shaping what we believed in our worldview, our culture, and in doing so, they were carving into your thought life, into how you fear, into how you love, into how you do everything, into how you hear your thoughts. You hear your own thoughts. They're carving into it. And your belief system can change, right? That's what deconversion is all about. Your belief system can change, but it doesn't mean that this process is over or necessarily that it will ever really end. You've left the theology, but in a sense, you could say, I still flinch. I keep the flinch. I've lost my creed, but the panic attacks are still there. And my vocabulary is so different. But in a sense, the vocabulary that they gave me still resides somewhere in my nervous system. And in a sense, it's like an alarm that just doesn't switch off. I can't switch it off no matter what I do. You just don't have the power to see it and to change it. I'm going to go through a few more thoughts here by way of introduction, and then I'll again add the StreamYard link for anyone that wants to join us. But, some of our deepest scars in life are the ones that are just pure pain. But the strange part about the scars of Christianity are that there were scars that were being made that were often happening in a context where everything about it was being lauded and praised. Like, this is a great thing that you're being told that you're a dirty, rotten sinner. And those kinds of wounds and scars are truly disorienting to us, even years later. They're hard to explain even to other people who didn't go through it, because it's a strange thing to get wounded and to have everyone around you be clapping. But that's what happened. That, in a sense, makes it worse, because these scars are examples of intense cruelty, especially to children. And especially when you're taught that cruelty was love, not just from your parents and other authorities, but from God himself. And you were injured. You were truly injured and scarred deep down. This is not about trying to bring up old wounds. This is not about trying to say, I want to be bitter or never forgive. But it's dealing with the reality that some of the things that were done in the name of God, and I don't just mean like a specific incident where someone did something to you. I mean just the whole thing, the whole thing. When you're taught to hate yourself and loathe yourself, to distrust yourself, to doubt yourself, to say that if you put yourself to death and die to yourself, that's a good thing. That's part of your acceptable sacrifice and devotion to Christ. And to shame you and to silence you for years and years and years. These wounds are part of what Christianity did to us to teach us to fear. And they were also the ways that Christianity taught us to think and see and feel about ourselves. It's about, how do you see yourself? And so the Christianity part can die away because we see it's mythology, but the way you see yourself, you're not mythology. You're here. You still have to live with this, and you still have to deal with it. And so for a lot of us, the crazy part of this is, the hard part is not just escaping, leaving. That is hard enough, for sure. But as the secondary follow-up stage to that, where after we deconstruct and deconvert from Christianity, we are having to deconstruct and reconstruct ourselves, and realizing that there's a whole you that's buried deep down. And that's why this is such a tragedy. This tragedy is not just that you had wrong beliefs, you had erroneous beliefs. The tragedy is that you lost yourself. The wound and the scars that you lost yourself. You could argue that you lost your entire childhood in some ways. And the problem and the scary part is, some of you are in danger of losing your adulthood too. You had this whole plan of salvation and this map to heaven, this way to get right with God. And it was leading away your mind and your body, your thought life, your boundaries, everything about who you were becoming. It was leading you away. When you spend years having fear pounded into you as love, the act of healing that you eventually get to, hopefully, it becomes, in a sense, not just an act of hearing other people guiding you through the pain and into healing. It's in many ways translating it, because your translator that said you need to love yourself, or you don't have to be afraid of that. Your translator was so twisted for so long in Christianity that you do have to figure out how to reinterpret all that stuff, because fear used to equate love to love. Abuse used to be love. And so you're learning to sort of separate your voice from all that. There is an ache that a lot of us have, and I have it to this day. I won't hide it. I readily admit I have an ache and a sense of panic at times that's in your chest. That there's danger all around you, and that there's reasons to grieve and to be afraid. And a lot of us are going to spend years trying to figure out what that ache is about, and whether it's still useful, and hopefully how to get past it in some ways, for one reason or another. So tonight, what I was hoping is that this could be a place where we could talk about these things. What is the truth about what has lingered in the sense of these scars? The wreckage that our beliefs have left behind is devastating. And there's scar tissue because your personhood was forced into a mold and brainwashed and hurt. You were surviving in a cage. And, if you imagine that you were in a cage that was far too small for you to fit into, but you had to fit into it for a long time, when you finally got out, you might not be able to stand up straight or walk straight. I'm talking, of course, about, people that probably have gone through that in prisoners of war or something. But, if you're in a teeny little box for 5 years and you finally get out, you're not going to just stand up straight and say, oh, it feels so good to stretch, I'm ready to walk. You're going to barely be able to stand up at all. And some of these scars, they still ache so fiercely, especially because they were, again, carved into us when we were so very young. And if that was part of your journey, then Christianity may have, in a sense, marked you and sort of done the imprint on your skin that you may never fully outgrow. And if that's the case, if you relate to that concept, then this is a hard conversation, but it's for you. This is for those of us who are still learning to live our own lives in our own skin, in our own heads again. This is for people who are trying to come home to themselves and admitting that this is really painful. And I think it's important to just say right up front, we can heal, and at least try to heal, and do some pretty good jobs doing that. We can make some good progress, and our healing can be profound, and you can still carry lasting scars. It's not the same thing as an open wound. We're not saying this just happened a month ago or a year ago. We're not saying it's still happening. It may have been 20 years ago, but some of these scars still remain and they still hurt. And they have, in a sense, if I can use the word healed in this way, they've healed into your personality. And it's hard to pick apart which part is really you and which part is the scar. These were emotional, relational, bodily, developmental, psychosomatic scars. Some of these scars have, in a sense, left the forefront of your thinking, your beliefs. They're still in your worldview and they're still in your body. So we're going to go through that. I've got someone that just joined the live stream here. I'm going to pop them in here, but I just want to mention again, I've got some thoughts to share to dive into some specifics regarding ways I think how these scars are still in our bodies, in our lives. But again, if you are able to jump in, feel free, and I'll just save my notes for later, either later tonight or for another time. But we have Alex. I'm going to bring Alex on here. Hey, Alex, thanks so much for joining us tonight. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks. Did you?
I appreciate you being here. And if you could remind us where you're calling from, and then feel free to jump into your thoughts about our topic of what permanent scars did Christianity leave behind in your life?
Yeah, so the UK, so it's getting quite late, but I just did have a few things that came to mind anyway.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think the first one really for me is like the trust between older people. For me, I think because like I had so much trust when I was younger for listening to older people, them telling me what which the right way to live was, and like just not having really the freedom to choose, but being so dependent on them. And then say when I sort of left, like whole trust is sort of broken for me. So like even now, I guess like working into my say more of an adult life now, it's sort of like trying to pick the right people to choose who I can sort of lean towards. But it's I just really struggle with having that sort of relationship with an older sort of person in some ways.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. Yeah, especially when you just see them as the absolute authority in your life and you trust them fully as your mentors. That's a great point. Really good point.
Yeah, I would say I think it's quite hard to sort of get that back really in some ways. It's I think, but in some ways, but I'd say communities, I guess, is probably going to be the one thing where that's going to help, and just sort of being around sort of non-Christians as well will just definitely help. You know, being more comfortable, I guess, in those situations.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, atheists can still be jerks or whatever, but hopefully, in the midst of the over time, you'll find some really good people, and I will too. That really are genuine people that are secular, but that aren't trying to jam their ideas down our throats and force us to believe stuff and threaten us. But was there anything in terms of not just the group dynamics, but anything personal, like that came to mind with the idea of the permanent scars in terms of just stuff that no one would have ever been able to see, but was just going on inside your own mind?
Well, not particularly. I say, like, I think the only other thing I was sort of going back to is like the just being like people being too overly positive in the Christian sort of community again, because say like I do sort of struggle, especially in some specific groups, like just people just being overly positive and not finding like just real genuine people, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big deal. May I ask, have you found much success in that in any of the secular communities you've been involved in so far?
Yeah, no, so I've been quite lucky in the way I sort of I'm quite into sports, so I've been quite lucky in some ways with that. But
Nice.
but I think that is just to say, just always the hard bit. I'm just always a bit more wary now going into sort of communities and stuff like that now. As it's like I'm always just looking for red flags. So see, obviously you shouldn't just be looking for red flags straight away, but it's like I think it's just that thing coming from Christianity. It's like I'm looking for specific things where I should just be having fun sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I hear you. It's interesting how I think that also relates to very strongly, like the dynamic you just said. It relates to romantic relationships where if you're, um, that phrase "once bitten, twice shy." If you are hurt romantically, any of us are hurt romantically. It's like the next time we see red flags everywhere, whether they're there or not. We're more sensitive to it because we're just like, this didn't work out so well last time, and it certainly relates to a lot of our circles of connection in life. But it certainly is so painful with Christianity because they're the authority there is a little bit more than just a possible relationship that may or may not last. But this is like for us was for time and eternity, and so their influence was so much greater and their authority was so assumed and so final. But yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to find some connections with people. That's awesome, and I hope that continues. And appreciate your being a part of our community. I know you said it's late there, and I don't want to keep you from wrapping up your night and whatever you got to do to get to bed. But was there anything else on your heart to share before we wrap up?
And no, that was just it was just a quick thing anyway. I just had those sort of two thoughts on my mind. But yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
that topic.
well, yeah, well, I appreciate it so much, Alex. Great to hear from you, and thanks again for being willing to jump in here late at night. But I hope you have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon. Feel free to keep looking out for the topics that are coming out. Hopefully, some of them will again strike your fancy, and you'll want to jump in with some more thoughts. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you so much, Alex, for jumping in. Appreciate that. And so, if anybody does want to join, I'm going to put the link in. There's one or two comments here I missed, and I'm going to read that. Oh, okay, it's just the one. The other one was the streamer link. Melody says, "No matter what I do to try to heal, I have trouble with marketing or promoting myself, my products, and my story. This is from so many layers of evangelistic training and shaming." Yeah, I could definitely relate to that, Melody, for sure. And I think a lot of it is just we're so trained to think poorly of ourselves. We're so trained to think poorly of ourselves that when it finally comes time to say, "Hey, I'm great, I'm awesome," or "I've got something great for you, I can help you," it's like it's hard for us to say that because we're so used to saying, I'm a nobody, I'm a nothing, I'm a bad person, and I need someone else to help me. I need an outside savior, as opposed to I can do this myself, and I'm proud of myself. And that alone, the idea of saying I'm proud of myself was just such a non-option before. So thank you for sharing, Melody. If you do ever want to come on, feel free. In terms of the permanent scars that Christianity left behind in our lives, one of the things that I thought was worth saying, and I think a lot of us would readily say this, but I'm going to take the words out of your mouth. Christianity stole your childhood. And I think we need to say it again a little bit more, with a little more expletives, a little bit more intensity. So brace for impact. But, Christianity fucking stole your childhood. It really did. It really, really did. And there's no two ways about that. Your childhood was not allowed to be what it should have been. It should have been arguably soft, should have been a time of imagination and exploration. It should have been playful. It should have been safe. And instead, if you're really honest with what happened, most of you would probably say, my childhood was entirely colonized. I was brainwashed. Hey, Stephen, great to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Haynes Animates. Hey, I know this is a common struggle, but I'm currently deconstructing and I really can't get over the fear of hell. Being locked in an eternal cosmic dungeon is horrifying. Do you have any advice? Hey, Haynes, thanks so much for joining us tonight. Appreciate your question. I'll actually leave it up there for a second. I'm going to probably talk a little bit about this more directly later, but I think since you brought it up, we'll touch on it. One of the permanent scars is hell. One of the permanent scars is you're bad and you're gonna get punished for it. For a lot of us, that's started, of course, with physical discipline, with spankings, or some kind of beating. Certainly some kind of deprivation, at least, but more likely some kind of direct pain. I was certainly spanked a lot, and it isn't like that is ever described as like that's hell, but you get the picture early on that you're going to get punished really severely. It's really going to hurt. And that, of course, goes further and further and further up into the picture of hell. That if you don't turn to God and bow your knee and repent, you're basically going to get it. You're really going to get it when you die. I think a couple things I would say, and this is certainly not exhaustive. I could probably say a lot more, but just off the top of my head, the two big things that have helped me the most, and I hope they help you, but the two big things I would say that helped me the most are, number one, I would say regarding hell, that it's mythology. And if you study in depth the Zoroastrian versions of or ideas of hell, which, Judaism did not really have a version like this, where they would say, you die and then you face a judgment and then you go, to a bad place of burning, or you go to a good place of bliss. But they were exposed when they became, exiles to Babylon. They got exposed to these Zoroastrian beliefs, which included the afterlife and the way that would work. And so it's not a surprise that, over that period of time when they were, out, of their land, and they were being exposed to all this stuff. And I'm just bringing up a video I'm going to give you a link for. But, when you look at the way that mythology evolved from Zoroastrianism, it's not a shock at all that Christianity at that point, that one of the versions of the, Judaism, that at that point, Christianity adopts it. Christianity adopted the same concept. It was certainly, their specific version of it. They changed it a lot, but I would say that if you continue down the road of studying mythology regarding hell, you'll find that a lot of the ways that they changed it were not just towards Judaism. They changed it toward the Greco-Roman mystery cult beliefs. And you do literally see words for hell in there, like I think in 1st and 2nd Peter, perhaps, or Jude, but you see words like Hades and Sheol, Hades and Tartarus, which they're right out of Greek mythology. So if you become more and more exposed to Zoroastrianism and Greek mythology regarding the afterlife, I think you'll end up seeing that they borrowed it. So if we're going to be afraid of hell, it's not the hell of, Yahweh and Jesus. It's really the hell of where they borrowed it from. So if you want to be afraid of a hell, be afraid of Zoroastrian hell, But the other part of it is just the idea that if we really do believe that God is good, and I certainly don't, I think he's described as a mob boss. But if you did have some sense that this is a good father, then you have to ask yourself, would a good father really burn his kids? Not just for eternity, but for even for a day or for an hour, for a minute. Would you ever burn your kids for 1 minute? Would you burn them for 10 seconds? So that immediately makes you better than any God that would do that. So either you're better than God, or the God is actually flipped, and it's more like, he's a demon, he's a monster, he's a mob boss, or I think more likely he's not real and he's made up by people that were pretty sick and sadistic. So I think it's also worth adding that the concept of hell didn't just evolve between the Testaments, period. It also evolved heavily after that with, Dante's Inferno and all that stuff. There's a lot of concepts that came later through church history. And if there's that much at stake, I think I would have made it crystal clear as to what that was, and made it crystal clear from the beginning, and help people to, at any cost, you have to escape that outcome. You have to escape it. But he barely clarifies it at all. This link I'm sending in the comment section is Bill Zersher's video, which I've shared before, called Seeing Through Christianity. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It will talk about the evolution of the Christian beliefs, the Jewish beliefs, the beliefs of Judaism into Christianity. Highly recommend it. But I'm so sorry for your pain, Haynes. I really do hope that you're able to find some peace, and just to know that this whole thing doesn't make sense. It's not as much being afraid of hell from God. It's being afraid of hell that's made up by very human, sadistic authors. Some very bad men. Philip says, when you think about it, the biggest scar it leaves for you is learned theism minus the following or worshiping. Ironically, you're more of an atheist at yourself rather than any anthropomorphic God. That's a deep one. I'm going to have to think about that one, Philip. Yeah, I mean, when you've got it implied in your head for so long that there's somebody, whether it's Yahweh or someone else, or you really understand Yahweh and are close to him and love him or not, any which way you slice it, you're instilled, inculcated with the idea that there is a God. This is a theistic worldview through and through. Alex again says, when I knew people now and tell them my story, they always think it's super strange from when I was younger. Yeah, for sure. Hi, Steve. Been reading your book, a bit of your book. It's interesting. Very cool. I'll have to get a copy of that, Stephen. I'm not sure if I have that or not yet, but so yeah, I think that the version of the idea of hell is an awful part of our experience. And in some ways that still relates to this first point I'm making, that Christianity stole your childhood, because if you live from day one under fear of hellfire and fear of outer darkness where you're not near your loved ones ever again, then Christianity stole your childhood. It diverted your focus from the beauty of just growing up and being a kid to, oh my goodness, there was a house fire and I'm in it. I need to get out. And you weren't in the house fire, but you feel like you have to get out at all costs. So I think we got one comment here. Let me read that real quick. Philip says, the doctrine of hell arises from human dualistic mindsets. Many idly believe in hell because they say it's biblical. Actually, it does. Starts from in the beginning and ends with amen in Revelation. Yeah, I mean, if you believe that, spirit is good and body is bad with the dualism, and you believe that the only way to escape your fleshly badness is through a spiritual awakening, which is, in Christianity summed up as a relationship with God through Christ's death and resurrection on your behalf. If that's what you believe, then yeah, your body basically is on the way to hell. Your mind, your spirit your heart is on the way to heaven, if it's right with God. And the only way that your body, your physicality gets redeemed is really if you get a glorified body, which is what it promises. Good point. Alex says, I thought it would take me longer to get over the fear of hell. I was surprised how quickly it went for me. I would ditto that, Alex. I was the same way. My fear of hell left almost immediately. It was very weird. I think, how people say, when someone dies and then you're like, I'm sad, but like I'm not shocked or anything. And you don't necessarily feel like you have to cry and cry and cry and cry. Oh, why aren't you crying? Didn't you lose someone you loved? Like, yeah, but I kind of knew they were on their way out for a long time. Like they had whatever this disease, and they were in the hospital 5 times. We had close calls 10 times. We all thought it was coming, and it didn't come, and it didn't come, and eventually it was like, I guess they're hanging around with us for a while, and then all of a sudden they're gone. It's like, well, are you sad? Well, yeah, but I kind of cried this one out 10 times already. I think it's similar in the sense of the mythology. We kind of cried it out regarding hell, not in the sense of the grief over hell not existing, but just going through the process of realizing it's not real. It's not real. It's just not real. There's no way this is real. There's no way that a good God would do this. When you finally get to the point of deconstructing, to the point of true deconversion, you're like, I've already kind of mentally behind the scenes said, this is ridiculous. This is insane. This is clearly a human construct. This is clearly mythology so many times that when it finally gets through, it's like, yep, I agree. That is true. It is mythology. It is false. That it's not really a shock. It's not really a shock. Alex says, heaven scares me more now. Yeah, I mean, if you really believe that Yahweh, not believe, but if you know that the description of Yahweh, especially in the Old Testament, is that of a true psychopath, then being with him, I mean, honestly, I think, pardon the expression, but it would be like if you gave Donald Trump all the power. I mean, all the power. He's not just president. He is, the entire Supreme Court is him. The entire Congress is him. The entire top brass of the military is him. Like there's nobody up there. It's just him. Everyone just does what he says. That's basically Yahweh. I mean, Donald Trump and Yahweh are two peas in a pod. And I think that's one of the bizarre but obvious reasons why Christians enjoy him so much. Sick as it is, they enjoy him so much because he resembles their hero. So yeah, heaven would scare us a lot too. I wouldn't want to be in heaven where Donald Trump ruled everybody and could see your thoughts. That just would be sick. Haynes says, thanks for your thoughtful answer. At a point where I'm leaving the faith, I live in a hyper-religious city. Every person I know is a believer. How do I cope? It's so emotionally manipulative. Yeah, Haynes, I appreciate your asking that question. I just want to mention, if it's of any benefit to you, I'm open to peer-to-peer support, non-clinical, making that always crystal clear. But if anybody, Haynes or anyone else, wants to reach out and consider meeting with me one-on-one, I'm available for that as a as a support peer. But just to get to your question, I think, again, everything I could say, I think if I thought through it more carefully, I'd say a bunch more, but I'm just going to say what comes to mind at the top of my head. I think what you have to do is psychologically separate yourself and go to a different place in your mind. Even if you still decided, you know what, I'm still going to go through the motions. I'm going to go to church. When it's Sunday dinner, I'm still going to pray. If they say, hey, Haynes, could you pray for their meal before we start? Do it. If the best and safest thing for you psychologically is to go through the motions for another 6 months or a year, then do it. Go through the motions while you figure out yourself, who you are, so that you don't have the barrage of questions and people gaslighting you. But while you're going through that, going through the motions, if you need to, you need to slowly separate yourself and develop a thicker skin. And I don't mean that in a patronizing way. I just mean we all need to develop a thicker skin, because Christianity and gaslighting go hand in hand. And if you're not prepared for it, you're not prepared for the attack, it's going to tear you down. It's sort of like, when you read occasionally about people who do like a Star Wars movie. They're in a Star Wars movie, and then something about the Star Wars fan base doesn't like a certain kind of person, whether it's their race or gender or whatever, or the way they act, something about them, and you end up seeing all kinds of posts online against that particular actor. And that's obviously really sad that they would do that and attack somebody. But you read sometimes where some actor is seeing these things, seeing the attack, and they have to like go into a shell. It hurts so much. They're almost like, if I don't go into a shell, I get suicidal. And I'm not in any way blaming them for doing what they have to do to protect their emotional stability. But at the same time, if you are going to put yourself out there in any way, you have to first say, I'm going to develop a thick skin. It was one of the first thoughts in my mind. I mean, literally, when I started this YouTube channel, I said, people are going to attack you. Don't do this. Are you ready for people to say you're going to burn in hell? You're a bad person. You're leading people astray. The devil's got you. Are you prepared for the attacks, both personally and anonymously? They're like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm ready for this. Of course I'm ready. I'm very ready for this. I will let it slide off my back. But that's not where everybody is. And I would say for a lot of people who are going through it where it's fresh, where you have a lot of current attacks, or it could affect where you live and your relationships, your money, your job. There's times to stay quiet while you replant yourself. I've had pastors, literal pastors who are currently pastoring. They're still in the pastorate. I've had pastors reach out to me and say, hey, this has to be like just private between you and me, but I'm getting out. But I can't talk about it probably for a couple of years because it would affect my ability to survive and provide for my family, but I'm trying to find a way out. Their time to talk about it is not now. Their time to not just mean on my channel, I mean to their family, to their congregation. Slowly develop a second life. Slowly develop your life outside of Christianity. Slowly develop a different community so that as those people eventually find out, and they eventually will, there's no way around it. But when they eventually find out that you're no longer one of them, and they begin to switch into panic mode and then attack mode, which they will, and gaslight mode, you are already prepared for it. You have a thick skin. You have other people to talk to about it. You have people who can support you, and you can say, hey, this is what I'm getting from my family. What do you think? And they will support you and say, yeah, no, I got the same thing. Don't even answer them. That's not worth going into. Just walk away. Just say thanks, but I don't agree. But also, I don't owe you an explanation. I don't have to explain myself. This isn't what I believe. Like, can you respect me that I don't believe it? I don't have to explain why. I might choose to. I might go over apologetics and counter apologetics with you, but I don't have to. Can you respect that I just say I just don't believe, or I don't agree with that worldview? And if they can't do that, then they're basically sending a direct attack at you, for which you need to have already been prepared. Jesus, in the Gospels talks about counting the cost. Which, should someone go to war, unless they're prepared to are you sure you can win? Well, don't start a war unless you're sure you can win it. How relevant is that to this week, right? But he says, don't build a tower if you can only build it halfway, and then you run out of money for the second half of the tower. Like, don't build a house if you can't finish it. So count the cost of what it's going to take to be public, and don't go public until you're ready. Get the other people in your life. And I would say that applies to anybody going through anything where it's going to shake up your life. If it's about coming out as a agnostic or atheist, or coming out as from your sexuality, something like that, whatever it is, if you're going to bring something to the table that's like, this is very, very, very shocking to them. Shouldn't be shocking to people that truly love you. It might be new information, but they should still love you through it. But if it's going to be shocking to the point where they're going to gaslight you and attack you, then you shouldn't bring it up until you're ready, meaning you have a new community around you. Just my 2 cents. I think online communities are a big deal. A lot of Facebook groups I could recommend if you want to reach out to me privately, or some other people. If you know some people in the group, feel free. But these are horrible situations, truly horrible situations, and we feel for you. Please feel a big hug from us. We care about you, and protect at all costs to your mental health. Your mental health is everything in this. Your emotional well-being. If you have people attacking you either actively or passive aggressively, you need to be safe in your own skin, safe in your own mind. And it's horrible, some of the things I've seen Christians say to people that are leaving. Certainly there's extreme stories like the JWs, where they just like, screw you, I don't want to talk to you ever again. I'm never going to talk to you again, ever. And they mean it. They do literally, like, they'll never talk to you again, period. It's just that conversation is truly the last one you'll ever have with them. But other people will just be, they'll just be a pain in the ass to you for the next 10 years. We get it. I got it's funny. I share sometimes that I went on a missions trip many years ago with several people, quite a few people, to New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, living in grass huts and so forth. And it was mostly Americans, a few Canadians, and a few British people, and 1 or 2 Aussies. And I don't keep in touch with almost any of them. We just kind of, after 6 months or a year, it wasn't like a bad thing. We just were all busy and went our separate ways. But just luck of the draw, I still keep in touch a little bit with the Aussie. And she married, and they became missionaries, of course, and they have a bunch of kids, I'm sure. And her name is Debbie. Debbie, I think, is in New Guinea, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be wrong on that. But Debbie and her husband are just faithful missionaries doing their thing. And they figured out years ago that I turned atheist somehow, and they've checked into my channel like once a year. Just not much. They don't care. Obviously, they're not going to agree with me, but once a year, whatever, or 6 months, they check in and just see what I'm up to. And just this week, I got an email. I haven't been in New Guinea in like 20 years. Like the last time I saw Debbie was we were like mid-20s or whatever in Papua New Guinea, and here we are 20 years later, and she writes me, and it's just this long gaslighting email about, you got to get back to Jesus, you got to get back to this and that. That stuff hurts, but if you're not prepared for it, it'll tear you down, especially if you don't have anything else good going on in your life. I mean, fill your life with some good stuff, even if it's just hobbies. If it's as simple as your routine for how you exercise, or the walk you take, whatever it is, find some hobbies, find some routines, hopefully find some community. And I hope we can be part of that. I know we can't be all of it because we're online, but it's not in real life in a sense. But I'm real here in Atlanta, and a lot of us in the community, we really, from all of our different places, we care, Haynes, and I'm so sorry. I really hope for better days ahead for you. Haynes also says, my parents are both severely conservative pastors as well. I'm stuck. I have no one to talk to about what I'm going through. Yeah, well, you're always welcome to come in and to share your comments and or to come on the live stream if you want to here with us. Again, you're welcome to reach out to me for peer-to-peer support if that would be of any help. And I certainly would encourage you at the very least to consider, if you're not already in some Facebook groups, to get into some. Reach out to me or someone you trust, and we'll make sure that you're in them if you're not already. I'm in probably at least 15 to 20 of them. They can definitely, I'm sure, could help. I'm more on the content creation side, so I have time for about 2 minutes of Facebook a day. The doom scrolling thing is I just don't have the time for it. I wish I did, but I've been around long enough to know that some of those groups are amazing. And if you were more in a spot where you just need to be a fly on the wall and just listen, and eventually put some questions up and say, hey, what do you think about this? This is what my family's saying. They're attacking me. You'll get a bunch of people that will support you. So, again, please feel a big hug from us, Haynes. Philip says, this is why I don't think God adds anything to the moral equation. Christians assert that objective morality is grounded in God, but what is objectively moral about eternal hell, fire? I rest my case. Yeah, there's no morality to it. It's just a psychopathic mob boss mentality. Yeah, very tough. Kenny, I'm so very sorry that you're going through that as well. These are hard times for a lot of us. Good advice. I feel like you're talking to me too. Thank you so much. I'm so glad it's helping. And I think I speak for a lot of us in saying that a lot of us really care. Shell says, Shell, great to see you. Thanks for being here. She says, I'm sorry, Haynes, that's difficult. My deconstruction was a scary, confusing time, but it was also so freeing once I got through that period and realized it had no power over me. Yeah, I'll drink to that. And I love the illustration of the phrase, when you bring things into the light, when you bring secrets into the light, when you bring anything that has power over you into the light, it disappears. The power is gone. Take the secrets, take the domination, bring it into the light of truth. So I live in a very religious city as well. Just found out my daughter's principal is a 6-day creationist. Oh, God. Sad stuff. One step away from being a flat earther. Having these communities online makes a massive difference. It means that you don't feel alone in those situations. Yeah, for sure. And Haynes, and for everybody, I'm trying real hard to be online every night. I'm finding that it's probably going to be more difficult on the weeks that my kids are with me. I've got 4 small kids. It's going to be difficult to do it on the days when my kids are with me. I'm going to actually, while I'm talking, bring over a picture that I just took with my kids. I'll bring it up here in a second so you can see it. But the reality is that we all try to find time for what's important to us, and this is very important to me. But I'm finding that for myself, that the times when my kids are with me, they're so needy. I mean, they're wonderful kids. And I'll share this picture in a minute, but they're wonderful, wonderful kids. I mean, just delightful, beyond delightful. But the reality truly is that they're a lot of work, and it's a beautiful privilege. I take every minute with them as an honor, but it's a lot of work. Literally last night, I'm digressing here a little bit while I look for this photo, but I think it's worth it. You guys will like, oh my goodness, it's a great photo. But when I last night when I went to bed, like I really value my sleep. I really value it. And so my little 7-year-old Ethan, my little 7-year-old came in just like an hour after I went to bed, and he comes in at like 10:30 or something, and he's like, "Daddy, I had a nightmare. Can I sleep in your bed?" I'm like, of course, buddy, no problem." So there I am with him, and then another one comes in, "Daddy, I've got a sore throat." Then another one comes in shortly after that, "Daddy, Daddy." It went on and on. Little like all 4 kids woke me up, and I'm at this point, like as of like right now, as I talk to you, I haven't caught up from that yet. So I am literally working on basically like 2 days worth, like 48 hours worth without any sleep, almost any sleep. So it's crazy. And in that context, it became difficult for me to be on last night. But I had a massive headache in addition to the concerns about what was going on in Iran. But apart from that, I really want to. Here's the picture, by the way. Can you all see that? Those are my wonderfuls, my little kiddos. I know it's probably hard to see on a phone if you're on a phone, but if you can see it on a computer screen, it might be bigger. But that's my lot, my 4. That was just yesterday. But I want to be on all the time, and I think we're going to be on enough, Haynes, and other people that are thinking this way. I'll be on enough that hopefully it feels like this is a community. I don't want this to be like just a place that's like hit and miss. I'm trying my best to be on it. It's not going to be every night because of them, I'm sure, but it's going to be a lot of nights. It's going to be at least half the week. At least half the month, if not 2/3 of it. So please lean on us if you can. Yeah, Haynes says it's impossible to find community. I have severe social anxiety that I've been working on. Okay, but can't seem to figure out. Honestly, don't know how to make friends or non-believer friends for that matter. I would say start with Facebook groups. Number 1, you might find someone who's relatively close to you. You never know. But number 2, you might find that that's at least filling a gap in that until you are able to find some people in real life. But it's hard. It's real hard. I mean, I live in Atlanta, and there's a lot of people here. I don't know hardly anybody, even in Atlanta, Georgia. This is like a hub and everything. It's the biggest airport in the country, I think, if not the world. And so many people here. There's got to be tons of atheists. I don't know where they are. If they're in Atlanta, I haven't met them. There's one or 2 people that I've met, I should say, but like online. But we haven't met up in person because we're not like really close by. But you'd be like, well, should it be easier in a place like Atlanta to meet up with 20, 30, 40, 50 people? I thought about actually creating a secular church here. I wouldn't call it church, of course, but I've thought about it. It's more like probably at least a year away before I'd even take any steps toward it. I need some other things to be in place first. But it'd be interesting if I could ever do that, create a secular place for people to meet. We'll see. Thank you so much, Haynes. Appreciate that. Going back here to any comments I missed here. The Latter-day Saints are almost as bad as the JWs. Yeah. A lot of them, when you're in their group, and when you're out, they hate you. They hate you. I mean, it's amazing to me, that dynamic, that when you're out and you haven't come in yet, they want to love bomb you like crazy to get you into the church. But the minute you're in and fully vested, I believe, and I'm working with you, and I'm ministering with you, and I'm serving with you, and then you say, actually, I don't believe anymore. Gone. You're an absolute traitor to them. They hate you. I've seen it up close and personal, and it is real. It's intense. Nobody needs to learn about egoic projections of any God out there. Jesus allegedly said, the kingdom is within us. Learn our inner selves and not the subjective opinion of religionists. Yeah, in many ways, that's very true. A lot of this is just know yourself. Know yourself. So again, if anybody wants to join, you're welcome to. I'm going to read through a few more of my notes here. But we're talking again about permanent scars that Christianity left behind in our lives. I talked for myself about the idea that Christianity stole our childhood. You don't get it back. It stole your time. You don't get your time back. I think another big one that a lot of us would say, again, I'm pulling the words probably out of your mouths for some of you, but probably the big one in the room, permanent scars, is that God was used to justify extreme physical abuse. When you hit a child, you terrorize a child, you restrain a child, you scream at them, you discipline them harshly in the name of your God and of righteousness and of trying to get them in the straight and narrow. The pain that you give them is physical, but it's not just physical, it's psychological. You have fused fear and authority, and you've fused love and violence. You've fused obedience with survival. You have put your children in fight or flight mode for the sake of your Canaanite demigod. And the wound in that sense is really doubled. You have harmed their body first. You have spanked their heinies. You have, and I got spanked so much as a kid, not as much as some of my siblings, but I got spanked enough, and it hurt. It hurt like the dickens, as they say. And it didn't stop till your bare butt was red. I mean, you couldn't sit down when it was over. And a lot of you could probably tell stories that would spin circles around what I went through, and say, "Oh, you have no idea. Spanking would have been light compared to what I got." But the harm itself is there, and the memories of that is there. But the betrayal of saying heaven is smiling over this. God is happy with your parents because as they abuse you, it is training you to bow your knee in submission to the authority figure, so that if you can possibly learn to be obedient to your earthly parents, you will have been prepared to truly bow your knee to your real parents, your heavenly parent, God. God is smiling at your parents as they do this, as they raise you in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. The parents, they quote, spare the rod. And it's almost like your tears, become a form of rebellion at that point. And your pain is almost proof that you need to be broken more and more and more and more. Some of these scars that we're talking about are absolute sheer cruelty. And when you mix into that the cruelty is actually love, it's love by definition, that's what God is doing through the Old Testament. He is showing tough love or cruelty, but it's actually love. It's the best thing. It's medicine. It's the medicine you need. Just take it. That's what Yahweh is doing. He's a mob boss. He is an absolute psychopath. And your parents and my parents said, that's our hero. That leaves a permanent scar. You don't get over that. Again, low-hanging fruit here tonight. I'm sorry for this is going over the same stuff that you would say, but hopefully it's still kind of answer. I mean, I want to answer the question directly. I'm not looking for something clever. I'm looking to sort of list out the things that are sort of what we'd all say. Yep, that's pretty much it. We would go to pretty quickly at this is sexuality. We would say we carry around so much shame, so much damage around the topic of sex, even just information about sex. A lot of us weren't, either you weren't told, or it was like, hey, read this book and let me know if you have questions. That's what happened to me. I got Jim Dobson's Preparing for Adolescence, was it called? And, hey, if you have any questions, let me know. But even just not shame over sex, but shame over basic information about sex. And certainly shame over, curiosity and desire and pleasure, arousal and intimacy and eroticism. And certainly no talk really about boundaries or consent. But, even though there may not have been explicit abuse in certain cases for certain people, purity culture in general is training you to experience your body as dangerous territory. Be aware. Beware. It's all dangerous. Your innocence, your innocent curiosity is really like it's a contamination. It's something that's lurking. You know that verse about Satan. Satan is like a lion at the door waiting to prowl and get you or something. You know, Satan has desired to sift you like wheat, all that kind of stuff. Satan's waiting. He's prowling around. He's trying to get you. Your body, most likely, if you're a Christian, especially a conservative Christian, your body most likely became a battlefield in your mind. And that wove into your nervous system, into your fight or flight, certainly into your sense of, I am not a good person. There's no way. And just the shame of like, oh my goodness, the God of the universe can see my thoughts. This isn't just, did someone around here catch me? It's God can see you no matter, you could be doing stuff completely in private and no one will ever see what you just did. God saw it. You're not exempt from shame. And so it's carving itself again. I think the idea of carving is a good way to put it. It's carving itself into your inner woodwork. It's weaving into your wiring. It doesn't leave. It doesn't leave. I mean, you certainly arguably can do a lot of work on all these things, and you should do it, and you will do it, I'm sure, and it will make a difference. But the scar is going to remain. You know, it's funny. One of the illustrations we always had when I was a Christian was, does forgiveness take away your sin in the truest sense? And they would say, well, if you put a nail in wood and then you pull the nail out, God did remove your sin, but there's still this hole where the nail was. It's still like a scar in the wood. It's not completely gone, which is interesting when you think about what is salvation then, but what is God actually doing if it's not completely gone? But still, it's this idea that, you know, you can pull out the bad thing, but there's still proof that the bad thing happened. That, if I can borrow that for our topic tonight, that's what happened. They put a whole bunch of nails in your personality and your psyche. And when you deconverted, you pulled a whole bunch of them back out. And there's still a whole bunch of holes that have to heal up, a whole bunch. And if and when they heal up, they won't disappear. They'll be scars. You'll see them till the day you die. We talked a lot about hell before, so I don't want to go over that too much. Let's see here. Let me read comments before I go on. There's an atheist church near me I thought may be interesting to go to, just never got around to it. That'd be interesting. Alex, if you ever go to it, let us know how it works. I can't believe I didn't think of that, especially purity culture. Yeah. Purity culture did a number on us. We talked about hell earlier with Haynes' question, but I think there's also, just if I can sort of zoom out a little bit from the specifics of hell itself, there's a more generic fear that's around a whole bunch of related topics. And I'm not quite sure how to say it, but just say your fear of hell and the afterlife never really left your nervous system. So you have a dread of death in general. Like, when I die, what happens next? It's not like rest and quietness and nothingness. It's like, bam, you're in front of a judge. The minute you die, bam, the books are open. You get judged. It includes the fear of eternity. Like, oh my goodness, it's forever. And what if I was not right with God? The fear, of course, of the fires of hell, the fear of demons, the fear of blasphemy. What if you did believe, but then you did the unpardonable sin? It's the basic idea of, what if you get things cosmically wrong, just on the biggest scale? You know, survey looks at you and says, you're wrong. And you live as if there's a trapdoor. It looks like we got someone in the studio. Keith, thanks for joining. Keith, I'll be with you in 1 second. I'll just finish a couple thoughts here. But you know, if you were to have a trap door somewhere around you, theoretically, you'd pretty much watch out and not walk over that, even if you're sure that it was latched really well, bolted tight. If there's a trap door that you're going to have to walk over, you're going to walk around it, or you're going to jump over it. You're not going to walk over it and just test it and hope that it holds. That's what hell was like, but it was like a trapdoor that was too big to walk around. And you might say, in a sense, this is what trauma, long-term childhood trauma, does. The argument is over, but the trauma outlives it. The trauma goes on and goes on. It survives the evidence. It survives the new you, the information you got that says this mythology, the trauma, the nervous system indoctrination. it survives it. It lingers long after you've gone. And you might, at this point, just hear the preacher say something or have a nightmare, and you could wake up in a full body panic. And you say, it doesn't make sense, but it feels devastatingly real. It feels very real. And the beliefs have left your mind. They've left the building. But your body says, we're not done with this yet. We're still doing a very, very sick dance together. And I wish it would end, and it won't. This nightmare goes on and on and on. Like the song 99 Bottles of Beer on the Wall. It's not going to end anytime soon. Keith, I'm going to bring you in, but I just want to wrap that one thought up about the afterlife. Keith, thanks so much for joining us. You still with us? If you can hear us, Keith, you are, I think, on mute.
Hello?
There you are. Thanks for joining us, Keith.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Sorry we didn't get to the other night. I know you had to jump in, then jump out, but appreciate you.
All good.
If you had something that you wanted to share from the other night, if you remember it, feel free to do that. But
Oh, what was the topic? Remind me what it was. I might have had some. I think I did have something to say.
The topic, depending on which night it was, and I forget which one, but it may have been about what we wish Christians understood about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, hold on, let me think. What else? Actually, I should have thought of that, but...
Well, you can go into this topic for a night. And either way.
Yeah, I know what I was going to say. I wanted to touch on the fact that you don't choose your beliefs, and that if you no longer are convinced, or you've been presented with enough evidence to convince you that your formerly held beliefs were not true, then once you pass that boundary, the only way to stop it is just to completely, essentially, like, lie to yourself and say, I do believe this, when you actually don't, meaning that you and this is where that cognitive dissonance that people are able to sit with somehow. And for me, you had to be honest with your own mind, right? With your own intellect and the stuff you're hearing, and it's been confirmed and verified. And it's all the stuff that you talked about last night, actually, or the last time, where, just all the inconsistencies and all of the for me, it was a lot of the, when you consider that it's not a historical document in the same way that we consider things to be historical in our modern era, because we've often view the Bible very anachronistically, where we don't understand that these were stories that were meant to be like, almost like, competitive, like, my God's better than your God. So they would use a lot of the same tropes and a lot of the same, I think Shell had mentioned mimesis, and just understanding that. And point is that from what I've been able to see, that Christians are not able to wrap their mind around, probably because they're still in that paradigm. They can't wrap their mind around that somebody would actually not believe. And then that's where they, of course, the tired, like, well, you never were a believer. Well, it's how, what I would ask them in that is, how can you verify that somebody believes something that has no basis in like true fact? And by true fact, I mean, like, either you saw happen, even then, I mean, if you want to get philosophical with it, it's like, even if you saw something happen, it's like, how can you verify? How do you know, right? It's like, but that would be obviously a much better form of evidence. So, there's a apologia. I did the thing. I called him the wrong name. Apologia says it really well. And he was like, if God would know exactly what to say to me, and like, he could appear to me in a vision, he could appear to me in reality, like in front of me, or something like that, where if God knows us inside out, he created us, he knows exactly what you, Tim, would need to believe in him in the sense of this God from the Bible. So like God would, according to them, he knit me in my mother's womb and all this, like that he should know what to do to convince me, but he chooses not to. And then and so like I can't choose what I believe any more than I can like it's like if you walk out into a road and there's a bus flying at you, well, in that moment you can choose to believe there's not a bus flying at you, but you're gonna, like there are real consequences there. Versus if I'm convinced that there's a family of elves living in my attic, and you are like, that's absurd, that's crazy. I'm like, all you need to do in that case, and say, I don't want to go up there and look. I just believe that they're there. Well, all you need to do is go up and look, and you can say, hey, I see there's no elves, and I can be like, no, I don't believe you. Like, I know that there's elves up there, right? So it's like, it's that kind of like when you actually look at the evidence and you actually become convinced, that's not a choice you're making in the sense of like, I'm not just rejecting God, because that's what a lot of times they would say, is that you just want to sin, you're rejecting God, and all the verses they want to throw at you. But point of the matter is that these are spiritual texts, and they're not, again, like I was saying, they're not meant to be historical in the strict sense that we consider historical fact, but so that's kind of what I was going to say there, was that just that you don't choose what you believe, and that it's not a willful, purposeful rejection. It is, but it's because of the evidence and the fact, or lack of evidence, I would say. And then when you actually look, and that there is more evidence that it's not true than there is that it is true, then it's like, it's game over. I guess that's where I'm with that. So
No, I agree. That's a good way to put it. Can I ask, just sort of zooming in on that, how would you relate that to the idea of permanent scars that Christianity left behind in your life? Like, what would you say are some of the scars, now that you're on this side of it, that you would say, even though I know it's over, I know it's in the past, I know it's mythology, blah, 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 you'd look back and say, this thing still has its roots in me. And these scars, either they're going to take a long time, or they're going to just even potentially never really go. This is just part of what it means to have survived Christianity. What does that look like for you? Does that make sense, Keith? Sorry.
Sorry. I can't exit out of the screen. I just realized. I'm sorry. Are you there?
Yeah. Yep. I'm
okay.
Sorry.
I had like
couldn't hear for a second, but
okay. What I was gonna say was, for me, it's still pretty new as far as like, relatively speaking, compared to maybe a lot of people listening, or you. That how long have you been sort of out of the faith?
I've left in the end of September of 2019. So for me, it's been
7 years.
It's going on 7 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So for me, it's just been like a few months, a couple months or whatever. But so I think that I was going to say that I think it's important to distinguish between the scars left by childhood trauma or CPTSD and those of necessarily like specifically of Christianity specifically, because like I think that even though they're kind of intertwined almost to a point to where you couldn't separate, like because the chicken or the egg scenario, I think that it's our nervous system programming that we received as a child that is when you're needing safety, when you're looking to your caretaker or caregivers for safety or for what to do next, and you received different signals, either maybe there's abuse or neglect or whatever. Like, so I think that the thing is that trauma is like, and I'm by no means a professional, so don't listen to me, anybody. But I think that like the trauma is what happens when something happens when you don't have the capacity to cope with what's happening to you. So you had mentioned earlier about like, well, some people probably had it way worse. And I think that that's kind of, not that you're wrong, but like the how you deal with it and the severity that that your internal experience doesn't really directly correspond to the severity of the whatever the trauma. So you could have had relatively so-called quote weak forms of trauma, but are still very traumatizing, and you still deal with to this, for the rest of your life or whatever. So I think that it's like, and then you also, I think that it's important to know that there are many tools that you can access, like, obviously YouTube's a resource, but there's, if you can get therapy, not you, but just like, if these things are really still that like big of a scar or trauma, then it would be good to like, because there's like different modalities too than just like talk therapy, where you have like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and then there's like there's one I'm learning about called like eye movement desensitization, where it's like they found a lot of stuff with like your eyes and where your eyes are looking and where the movement, and so there's like this whole modality that's centered around, but it's kind of like hacking the body. I see it as, it's like you're sort of figuring out what this thing is in your nervous system that gets triggered, and then you can address that. And it may take time and it takes work, and like you've said before, you have to put in the work, but you can get over those kind of things. But I just, I think it's very possible. Like our minds are very moldable and flexible in a lot of different ways. And while we may never like ever really truly, and the other thing I was going to say was, I think that a lot of these things they're not even to the status of being a scar yet, because they're still an open wound where like the nerve's exposed. So when you press on that or it gets triggered in some way, it is like it's happening all over again. And that's when you're trapped in that loop that happened way back when. And that until you close that loop, until you address that, it will stay open. But then once you are able to like move past it and consolidate it, or like integrate it, that is, then the wound will close up, and I think scars are a beautiful thing, where it's a mark, but it's because our body has this remarkable ability to heal, and knit back together tissue that was like, because I have a few scars where, I pushed my hand went through a window and I got this like big cut. I had to go to the emergency room and stuff, but I still have the scar, but it's like, it's totally healed up, and luckily I didn't hit any nerves. Cause I guess, if you hit a nerve big enough, you'll have like numbness, for a long time or for forever. But the point I'm getting at is that, the scar is kind of like, I think it's a good metaphor or analogy, because, it's from a wound, but it scars once it's healed over. So I feel like a scar, it should almost be like, okay, this is a remnant in my mind, but it no longer has power over me,
Yeah. I agree. I think it's true. And I think there's a big difference between bemoaning our scars to the point that they have power over us, like you're saying, versus just admitting that they're there. I think I liken a lot of it to my situation, like with my dad. And I brought this up enough that people, who are long-term listeners have heard this story probably too many times. But like I had a situation, over the years where my dad eventually, and he's passed now, but he said to me, at one point very, very almost violently, I wish you were never born, Tim. I wish you were never born. And it did a lot of damage, but that's in a sense a permanent scar. But I don't
Yeah.
I don't live there. I don't think about that. I'm like, if I don't have a reason to think about it, it might be a year or two before I even be like, oh yeah, I remember that happened.
Yeah.
It's not like in the forefront of my mind. I'm very happy with myself. I'm very happy in my own skin, but it's still a permanent scar. And I think
For sure.
that's the beauty of moving past some of this stuff, is that the sting is still there when you really think through it. But you get so wrapped up in your new and hopefully better current life that you eventually it holds so little power over you. It's like it's not even an issue. I have a lot of things like that where I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that happened, and it was like at the time that it happened, it was like it was so devastating, and then you like years later you completely even forget it happened. You're like, how do you forget
Yeah.
something that traumatizing? But it's like you just do. It isn't like time healed it. It's just time made you kind of focus on other things, and eventually so much crowded in that it kind of it healed the sting of it a little bit. But
Yeah.
anyway, I certainly wish for people for it to, not to ignore it and not to hyper focus on it at the same time, but also to focus on it in a way that brings you to a point, like you're saying, where there's just far less power over you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I see it now. But yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think that yeah, like there's things that are unrelated to the Christianity in my life that I have scars from trauma wise. But you're right in that, like, there's that saying that says time heals all, but I don't necessarily know if that's true. But I think that time gives you, I mean, it takes time to heal, might be a better way to put it, in my opinion, in that, because you still have to actively address it. Because I've known people who never dealt with any of the stuff that happened to them, and it never goes away, and like it can come out in other ways too. Like you can have physical symptoms and things like this. Like I think I talked about my mom on here before, but she was like a short story, but she was like she went through a lot of physical abuse and sexual abuse when she was a kid. She never dealt with any of it. And then not blaming her, victim blaming, but it was never dealt with in her mind and in her heart. And so in her like later years, like 40, 50, 60, she developed all these physical symptoms. It was like a lot of nervous system problems they called it fibromyalgia. And, that's kind of like a catch-all for like, we don't know what it is basically, but a lot of pain, a lot of like, she was very tense, very like anxiety riddled, just constantly. And she was on like, 15 different medications. But the point is that those things, they resurface because if you don't address them, the wound, it never really the scar doesn't get a chance to heal properly. But back to the thing with Christianity. So like, I think that you already touched on it, but the fear of hell is one that I think is like, because it is like a survival thing. And I think it triggers that survival instinct in our body. And it does become a psychosomatic thing where it's the mind has been convinced that there's danger in you did something wrong, you messed up, you didn't have the right belief. You learn about, because it happened to me too, where I would like learn about a doctrine that I didn't know before. And somebody would be so convinced that this was the way and that you had to do that this way. No, everyone else is actually lying to you. And then, you kind of get this weird, like, well, that doesn't sound right, but what if you are right? And like I haven't actually like read the scripture like I should. Maybe I'm uninformed. Maybe this guy knows more than me. And so then people can easily like, convince you of certain doctrines that give you that intense fear of like, and I think it's a fear of death. I think it's that natural fear of death that you know, like if you're, I don't know, if you're like on the side of a cliff and you slip and you almost fall off, you know, that jolt of like intense fear that's the same exact thing that you feel, because you're like, oh, this is eternal consequence, you know, like this is so serious, and that is what this a lot of the trauma is from, I think, and that's where a lot of the scars come from, is that, because that's kind of what everything revolves, because you need the stick, right, to the carrot and the stick. So like that's how they keep you kind of indoctrinated and controlled, really, and not purposefully, like, because I think a lot of people, especially people who've never really been into Christianity before, they see it as like this, oh, they're trying to just control you. Or some people may, and yes, it may be used in that way, but I think for the most part, at least in my experience, the doctrines of hell and stuff weren't used to control, but it was something all of them believed. Everybody believes it, so we're all kind of in the same boat sort of situation where, no, we all need to like make sure we're right on this kind of thing. But so anyways.
Well, I think it probably was still control, but it wasn't necessarily individual control, but yeah, collective control for sure. And just the idea that we all have to have the message right. It's funny that the arrogance, though, of like having the message right is so big to them. I remember when I was going to a Presbyterian church, and I bumped into a guy who we started talking, and he was from a missions organization that was Southern Baptist. And even though we were both Christians who were totally focused on the missions and on loving the Lord and sharing the gospel, he was like, you Presbyterians, you Calvinists, like, you're not really doing real missions work. You got to have the message right. And so like, even now, like, they slice and dice it so thinly, but
yeah,
you know, even within the sub-denominations and interpretations, like they use hell and other topics to say, you got to have it right. And of course we have the right message. And but literally, if you don't get it right, you will have actual hell to pay. And at least on the major issues.
Have you ever met a oneness Pentecostal?
It rings a bell that I may have had someone on the channel at some point that was a oneness Pentecostal believer at some point, but I don't recall which interviewee was that. But
so it's like they believe in, so their big thing is you have to be baptized in the name of Jesus and not in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And that's why they call it. And they also they thought that the doctrine of the Trinity was a heresy. I think with there's like, I'm forgetting all like because these were theological beliefs that were held way back in the early Christianity that eventually were considered heretical, one or the other, right? So then they come back and people think that they've come up with something new. But anyways, these oneness Pentecostal people are very much like, put the fear of God in you, like because they prey on Christians from other denominations and try to get them to, they're like, well, tell me, how were you baptized? Well, you were baptized that way. It actually, don't you see here where it says, because they go based on Acts, where it's like, because they specifically prescribe to be baptized in the name of Jesus. And so anyways, they have this whole, and it's all bullshit, we know anyways, but they have this whole other theological bent that is directly antithetical to what you believe. And it, you know, I met one of these guys, and at the time he actually did kind of like, because they're so sure about themselves, right? Like we talked about before, where he just sounded so like he had all these scriptures right at the ready, and you know, they make you doubt, and then you go, well, I don't know if, because I was more on your end where I was like more of a Calvinist leaning. I didn't really know at the time, but you know, when somebody comes at you with something like that, that's so like what? And there's only one can be true. Only one can be true. And that's what fucked me up about it, was that it's like either this guy's right and I'm going to hell, or he's wrong and they're just all, going to hell, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, no, it's that, like, when you're talking about that, it reminds me of this church I went to where, yeah, it was just very like, it was like, we have the truth and you're being deceived and you need to come to realize the real truth. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying before about, you don't really choose, like, you're kind of coerced into believing in a way, like, because if you have this conceptualization of the Bible as a truth, like capital T truth, and then so that's why anything from the Bible can be used as a weapon. I mean, it really is true that they because they talk about using it like a sword, right? Like the Word of God.
Yep.
But it's used as a weapon, because as soon as you have that belief that all of these words are true, then any part of that Bible can be used, and especially if you can like reference other parts, then it becomes even more convincing, and then you can just. So I don't know. I'm sort of losing the plot here, but I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, no, it's good. I want to read a few quick comments too that I think relate to it. Shell had a few earlier that I'll come back to, but just in terms of your most recent comment, she says, agree, Keith, the fear of death became a stronger and stronger trait because as animals evolved, those that feared it survived and reproduced, passing on those genes. It is 100% hijacked by religion to control people. Christianity and Islam are amalgamations of all the controlling aspects that worked. Like afterlife is the solution for fear of death, familiar rituals for tribalism, pathos, heavy religious texts to convince the superstitious, uneducated plebeians.
Mm-hmm.
If free will to choose God were really free, the threat of never-ending punishment wouldn't be a thing. Yeah, for sure. And Philip says, everything is ultimately source consciousness, and gods of religions are human ideas, etc. Nobody needs to be given eternal life by God or Jesus. We already have it. I am is the eternal, but Phil isn't. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a great way to put it, Shell. They're taking our natural fear of death, which we should fear. There's a lot of sad, and horrible ways that people have died, and some of those could be headed our way, and we'd be very wise to avoid them if we can. And our fear of death and of what comes after, and the fact that we just don't know what comes after. I personally don't think anything comes after. I think that's it. But at that moment, but whatever it is, we don't fully know. We don't have any way to go and come back from the other side, if there is another side. And our general fear of it all combines, and they say basically we can monetize your fear of death, and that's basically what they did. They used it to control us and to monetize it, and then here we are, and it became political, and it became a social construct. But at the end of the day, one of the biggest parts of our healing, if we can get there at all, is to say that we're not going to let that dominate us anymore. And I think one of the craziest parts of this, I don't want to get too far off topic, but I think a slightly different way of saying this too, and this is not exactly one for one, but in addition to the fear of hell, they also either say or at least imply that this world is not your home. Your true home is either heaven or hell. You're just passing through. And the idea of them depriving you and giving you this permanent scar of saying, I want you to look at your real life right now and think to yourself that this isn't your real life. This is like a testing ground for the real life that starts the minute you die.
Oh, yeah. That's horrible.
Like, this is not your home. It's like, yeah, this is your one and only home, most likely. And so you've literally stolen my one and only home by telling me and convincing me that real life starts when I die. And the ripple effects just go on and on.
Yeah, I mean, it's awful. Like that right there is, I think, one of the core things that is the most disturbing parts of the Christian religion, and that, you will, and I've gone through this where I had those thoughts of like, I shouldn't be enjoying this so much. I shouldn't be having these nice things. I shouldn't be this. I shouldn't be that. I should have sold all I have and give to the poor and then go follow Jesus, whatever the fuck that means. Sorry, pardon my language. But like really though, I mean, when you follow Jesus, it's like they say, oh, just look to Jesus, just follow Jesus. This stuff they told me all the time was, it's like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm supposed to go on a mission trip? But then that has its own whole like infrastructure and all this stuff. And you got to have money, you got to have resources. And it's like, what does that exactly mean? Am I just supposed to go on the street corner and look like a crazy person and yell and scream at people and tell them they're going to hell? Like, I don't understand what it like, because it seems to be so like extreme in a way where it's like, well, no, you have to like hate your life and you have to hate your brother and hate your sister and hate your mother and hate your father. But as long as you do it for my sake, coming from Jesus, he said, if you, I don't know, that right there is just, yeah, that triggers me because it's definitely one of those things that it's like you're saying, when you look back and you go, all that time I wasted, all that, when I could have done X or Y, and I was instead, wasting my time, like spending Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday at the church and, every waking moment. And I'm sure like there's a lot of people who I call them nominal Christians, where they're like Christian by name, but they don't really like take it to heart like you have, Tim, or me even.
Right. Maybe more cultural.
Yeah, but they'll go to church and they'll sit and they'll listen and they'll go, oh, that was nice, but they don't really like, and I'm not trying to accuse people of being shallow, but it's like a lot of people don't really like consider how like exactly traumatizing some of these ideas can be, especially when you learn them at a very young age. And because like when your imagination is fertile, you're in a more it's why innocence is so precious and so valued, is that when you're innocent, it means you're very easily convinced of things. And so like when you're very young, it's like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the difference between anything. And so you're very easily molded. But one other thing I was going to bring up was this thing called misattributed agency. You ever heard of this?
A little bit, but feel free to unpack it.
So it is the phenomenon where individuals believe they have control over events or outcomes that are actually influenced by external factors. And it has to do with like when, from my understanding, I could be wrong on this, but like evolutionarily speaking, when there was a rustle in the trees and you attribute that to something in the trees having agency, and so you run away and then you survive, and it's a survival thing, right? But it's what people get when everything becomes like over spiritualized. And so you think that because you said that little prayer that you got your parking spot, or it's this it's a psychological thing is what I'm getting at, is that you're misattributing outcomes to things that you really literally had no control over, right? So that then you just insert God and say, well, God did it, and it becomes a very like, because I was thinking about, this is one thing that it did to my mind, where you start to think that like it's almost like a psychosis in a way. Maybe I'm just crazy, I don't know, but there's almost a because you start to think that like, this is God punishing me for this, or I did that, and so this is what's happening. It's about me. And it really becomes very self-centered of like, I did this wrong, so I'm getting punished, or God's opening this door because he wants me to have this, or he's closing that door because he doesn't want me to go there. And it's very difficult because I've even heard like sermons preached about this and stuff, where when you start to think that, when you start to spiritualize everything, it's inherently not, I don't want to say selfish isn't quite the right word, but it's self-centered. It's like everything's really about you. Even if you try to say it's about other people, it really does come back to like your experience and your life, because that's really all you have. And that's one of those other things that, you know, kind of touches on what you said earlier, where, you know, this life and this experience and this moment is literally all you have. And when you're constantly have your mind in the future of, oh, I'm going to heaven, or in the past of what happened to me before or whatever, you're not living in the moment, right? So this is why, like, you know, breathing techniques and stuff like that are good for anxiety and whatnot, because you're kind of centering into the moment, to the current moment, and what you can control in your body. And that I just kind of went on like a big bunch of rabbit trails, but the misattributed agency, I think it ties in with that, like constant paranoia of like spiritual stuff happening, you know, like because there's plenty of biblical evidence and plenty of biblical like precedent to say that demons are after me, and demons are trying to, you know, the devil's trying to control me, or, you know, he's trying to inject things into my mind. And, you know, I thought this thing, and then I talked to my pastor, and he said, well, that's just the devil trying to deceive you and lead you the wrong way. So, you know, but it's all this like these concepts that just aren't true. And that but because you believe them, they become true to you in your mind, right? Like, and that's part of like the reason why you get anxiety, the reason why your heart rate goes up, the reason why your pupils dilate, the reason why your all the blood goes into your internal organs and stuff, is because your brain doesn't know the difference between a thought and something that's real. Because, you know, like we're predictive machines, like our brains are predictive. They're always trying to like predict what's going to happen next. And when you think, oh my God, I'm going to die, or oh my God, I'm going to go to hell, then your body's like, all right, so we're going to just switch modes to emergency, you know, shut down this and ramp up that. And then, you know, it causes this cascade of physiological symptoms that then feed back into your psychological symptoms and make you think that something really is happening. And so then that's when you get to this panic spiral of like, my heart's racing, I think I'm going to die. Oh, what if I do die? And then, you know, then some people get it so bad they end up in the hospital because they think they're dying. But anyways, that kind of, so it's like, point is a very real phenomenon. It's a very real thing, that your beliefs will, you know, feed into, in these stories and stuff that we were indoctrinated with, just, you know. And like I said, if you have a good imagination, I mean, you can run wild with it, right? And
yeah,
and you can imagine the biggest monster, right? That's not there. Like, anyways, but that it's like the whole thing of I had it when I was a kid. I'm sure everybody, you know, a lot of people can have had it too, where the door to your closet's cracked a little bit, you're laying in bed, you can't see what's in there, and you saw this picture. For me, it was Bat Boy. I don't know if you ever saw that.
no, I don't think so.
So it was on one of those like Inquirer or Examiner magazine. You know, those magazines are really like
Fake ones.
like all this wild stuff. Like I forget what they were called, but anyways, it was this kid with like sharp bat teeth, and like big eyes and like weird looking ears, and he was bald, and he had this like face that was just so horrifying looking. But it was obviously, like, when you look back at it as an adult, you're like, oh, that's actually kind of funny, but when you're a kid and you see that, it's like, oh my God, this Bat Boy thing could be real. And then you're laying in bed and you're looking and you're like, what if it's Bat Boy in the closet? You know, and that's kind of what this is, right? It's like, it's this thing you can't see, can't be disproven, can't be proven, but it's there waiting, you know, and it's in the closet, it's in the dark, and you can't see it. Even though God's supposed to be in the light, he's not here, you know, he's not visible. So, but that, and then the concept of hell even you can replace with that too, where it's like, oh, that thing is in the closet, and I, you know, like I can imagine it and I can think of what it might be like, and that's just so awful, but it's literally never happened, right? And you have no actual, unless you, I mean, I'm sure, you know, of course there's people that have been tortured and all that kind of horrible stuff that they could probably have a closer idea of what like hell should be like. But us in America, like we're for the most part pretty safe most of the time. So anyways, yeah. So,
well, I appreciate you sharing all that.
Yeah.
I think we have imaginations that sometimes do go wild. And I certainly have, over the years, I've seen a few movies I probably shouldn't have seen, at least as a teenager, like The Boogeyman and Jeepers Creepers. But no, your mind takes them and makes them real. And I always remember the Matrix, where, you know, Neo asks, if I get killed in the Matrix, do I get killed in real life? And I think it was Trinity says your mind makes it real.
Yeah.
But or maybe it was Morpheus. But anyway,
no, I think you're right. I think it was Trinity, maybe. Now I'm second guessing.
But the idea that, you know, your mind really does make this stuff real, and you do end up thinking to yourself, especially since it's theological and it's your authority figures, that this is not like, this is not conjecture. This is absolutely firm information. Hell is real. Philip says, why do we keep talking about hell? There's no such vile place of torment. That doctrine was introduced by Augustine, and a fortiori is a lie conjured up by manipulative men. There is no hell.
Amen.
Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that it was made by Augustine. I think it was heavily changed, but it was made up by Zoroastrians a long time before Christians ever came on the stage. Hell was out. Hell as we know it was out there a long time ago. But yeah, church history keeps on adding to it and manipulating it. But yeah, it's a shame. But I mean, Philip, I think the reason we talk about it is because they convinced us it was real. They said it was real, and so we when you convince a little kid it's real, I mean, to them it's, you know, Keith, I think you were talking before about how we're so malleable, and that's why our childhood is so precious, is like, that's when you can get molded, and we got really molded, and this stuff, it's still there in one sense. And I think, you know, most of it's bad. There's a few things that are good. I've talked about some of the reasons that I like some of the things that have happened to me as a Christian that I want to keep. I don't want to lose them, even though I think I probably have logical reasons to lose them, such as, you know, the true desire to make a difference in this world. As a nihilist, I don't think that matters, but Christianity gave me the desire to make a real difference, and I live that way. I don't want to drop that. I think it'd be depressing if I lost it, but technically, do I really think it matters? No, it really doesn't, but I'm not going to live that way. I want to live as if it really does matter. And, you know, I think that's the point, is like, we get this stuff deep in our heads from the earliest days, and man, oh man, do they get us with the hell and the demons and the end times, the left behind stuff. But anyway, Keith, I appreciate you coming on though, but tonight, and I do appreciate too that you came back. I know Shell and I were talking about some stuff that we kind of went deep in different directions, and we you had to drop there the other day, but I appreciate you coming back on to kind of share a few thoughts today. And we definitely want to keep, you know, please keep looking for the topics that interest you, and please come on whenever something's you know, is of interest to you, because we love what you have to share, and I love what Shell shared the other night, and everyone else that jumps in. But was there anything else on your heart tonight before we wrap up?
Not really. I mean, I appreciate that. Sometimes I feel like I don't really get out at what's in my head quite right, but yeah, so yeah, no, I appreciate what you're doing here, man. And I think that it's good to address all this stuff. And I guess if I was going to leave with anything, it would just be what I said earlier, where it's like, if people are out there struggling, you know, I did want to say, I wanted to mention a YouTube channel that I found to be very helpful.
Sure.
For a lot of this stuff. And I had it pulled up, and this is why I went blank earlier, because I had went away from the screen to look it up.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Remember the name of it?
I'm looking at. Sorry, I had it pulled up here. Let me see. It is called. Shoot.
It's called Oh Shoot.
Yeah. It's called Oh Shoot. I'm so sorry. I had it pulled up, and now it's not showing up where I'm trying to look for it. But I can like put it down in the description.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
But
yeah, or if you can't find it, just jump. Come back into the next live stream in a day or so, whenever you have time, and just we can add it then. That's fine.
yeah, I swear to God, I saw it here earlier. But so I'll just kind of like give a little bit of a description of it. It's just the main person who talks on is this lady who experienced like just like boatloads of childhood trauma and stuff, but she is like overcome it and was able to like integrate and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, it's a professional type of it's not just like a no offense to like the average person YouTubers, but it's like a they're qualified psychologists and stuff, but it's based on like nervous system healing and like understanding how the nervous system works and how it was programmed and how you can like different tools and things you can do and understand. And a lot of the stuff has been like very, very helpful for me to like understand why certain things happen, or why you feel certain ways, or why you have certain experiences. It's called You Make Sense with Sarah Baldwin. You Make Sense with Sarah Baldwin. So check it out. I found it to be very helpful. So just a little plug there.
Yeah,
but
thank you.
that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'll put the link in. Good deal. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, thank you, Keith. Really appreciate your insights. Have a great night. We'll talk to you hopefully soon.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Right.
And a few quick comments here. Let's see here. Shell says, if you view life's purpose rather than individualism, your contributions to the collective can bring far greater meaning than religion. If you view life's purpose through collectivism, what I meant to say, there's much more fulfilling. This is much more fulfilling to think you can have lasting effect for good. Yeah. Making everything about your own personal relationship with God and your own eternal standing makes you self-centered. Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. See here. Philip says, take away the adbaculum of hell and Christianity's sting is vanquished from its tail. In fact, Christianity is like a dog eating its own tail itself. Yeah. Yeah. Shell, feel free to jump in if you've got time. Yeah, but it's about we're about an hour and 45. I was thinking of going to like 2 hours. So yeah, if you got time now, feel free to jump in. We'd love to have you on. I'll just mention here for my notes real quick, and I'll jump back out here if Shell can jump in. But I think a lot of us would say that one of the permanent scars is that a lot of us just learn to hate ourselves. I mean, on the real level of identity, worldview. It's not just you did wrong. It's that you are wrong. You are broken. You are desperately wicked. There's something messed up with you at the core. And those messages sink so deep. You're stained, you're fallen, you're depraved, you're suspect, you're bad. It's like your internal self-talk. It's your internal climate. And you can honestly, if you have that long enough, if you're honest with yourself about what your self-talk is like, even to this day, you might have to admit, I have become harsh and merciless to myself even after I've left Christianity. You might succeed in some way and feel joy. You might, receive love, and some kind of buried voice inside of you says, you didn't deserve that, or you're proud now. The pride you're feeling is wrong, or you're corrupt, or this is bad. And just, it's what you feel towards yourself. It's what you think about yourself. And what you think to yourself is, I'm really an awful person. And awful people in our minds don't deserve good things. So when bad things happen, you're like, I deserve this. Or when good things happen, you think, well, the rug's probably going to get pulled out from under my feet because I don't deserve this. I don't deserve good stuff. So either way, you don't feel safe in your own skin. You just don't. Shell's jumping in the backstage. We're going to have Shell be the last person. So Shell, you have the final word here, so to speak, in terms of the the people coming in from the audience, but Shell's here, and we'll jump in with her. Shell, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm exhausted, but I'm here. I'm ready for business, ready for a week of intense nonstop YouTube right now. So I'm glad to be back with y'all.
Yeah, glad you're back. Glad you're back.
Thank you.
I'm exhausted too. I feel you. We've been running around. It's like every night, we've got something to go do. So, dance and softball and all the fun things. So
yeah, it's rewarding. It's such an honor, but it's also hard. But what in terms of the topic, what thoughts come to mind about the permanent scars of Christianity?
yeah, I don't know if I could say all of that in 15 minutes, but
The Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, the Cliff Notes version. I think the biggest permanent scar, well, two big permanent scars, I would say. One is just that in my early life, and especially around my college years, I wasn't allowed the freedom to explore and find myself, essentially. I was very much captive by the idea that I needed to, once I had kids, I would probably need to be a stay-at-home mom and homeschool because public school is so worldly, or those sort of things. So I had this future that kind of the religion had planned out for me, just sort of in the back of my head, and I knew why am I doing all of this, sort of thing, because I'm not even gonna wind up getting the opportunity to use it, kind of thing, when I was in college. And so I geared kind of my stuff more towards kids and knowing that I was going to be probably just a stay-at-home mom. And that's when you have that idea that you have to be this perfect Christian mother, and you have to stay home with your kids and that sort of thing, you give up such a big part of your life and your autonomy. And it's really hard to get back once you're out of those college years, once you're out of those first early years where you're building your career and everything. Because then by the time you do have kids, you're not as set in the right path of a good career that you need to, be in before that time, I guess. That's kind of one of the biggest scars, is just kind of not being able to choose my own path, or feeling like I wasn't able to choose my own path in that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. And in some ways, I think it's so hard for women, because so many women, I mean, even as beautiful as motherhood is, and as beautiful as raising children is, and it is, it's still if that's the only thing and your whole identity is in that, then it's really hard to to feel like you're well-rounded and healthy. And I think even as if you had stayed as a complete Christian, you're also sort of hanging your hat on the idea that your kids are going to be staying in the faith and staying strong. And so even if you did everything right, you could still feel like you're a Christian failure if your kids aren't honoring God in the way you think they should. And or especially if they go way in some direction that's really upsetting to you compared to your strong faith.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of ways in which you can still feel bad. Yeah, endless pressure.
It's a lot of pressure on the mother and the children then too, because the mother is working so hard to try to, has given that up, I guess. She feels like this is her only avenue, is to make sure that she's raising good little Christian soldiers, essentially. So if her kids aren't in line, then that's, putting a lot of pressure on her to get them in line, and putting a lot of pressure on the kids themselves. And I'm so thankful that I got out when my oldest daughter was 2 years old, because that was kind of the thing that scared me. I was like, am I really going to raise her up to believe that she's got to fulfill the same role too? That was one of, I guess, my first mental, I don't know if I could actually do this. If I could actually remain Christian and if this is actually legitimate. I've got to teach my daughter that she's essentially, even through complementarianism, like Noelle was talking about, essentially subservient, second to a man. I was telling Noelle about this. So my husband's pastor, he wound up coming and joining our church because he was starting a ministry over in the Congo. And what was it? he was telling me about how all of the men in this community had passed away due to just all of the war, all of the strife going on in that region. And so all of the men had been killed, and only women were left in the community, and some children. And so he was talking about how this community was just left without any leaders. And I mean, how terrible of a thing. But to say women, like, to go so far with the whole, like, women cannot lead thing, that you would rather them be leaderless than put a woman in charge. Like, that just blew my mind. And I was like, am I really going to bring up my daughters in this? I couldn't fathom doing that. But yeah, sorry, the Cliff Notes version. I'm getting off on rabbit trails again. The second one, I would say the biggest scar that it's left on me is just, and like I said in a previous video, it's getting better. But yeah, that like fight or flight, when I start to think about it and bring it up again, if it's been a while since I've thought about it, I'll kind of have this nagging thought in the back of my mind, well, am I really 100% sure of everything? And so I have to go back through everything and like kind of calm myself down, remind myself how ridiculous, all of the different things are, just so that I have that like safety, that feeling of safety again. Like, yes, this was just, it's like calming down your children from a nightmare, you have to reassure them it wasn't real. So
Right, for sure. And
so yeah, it's like every once in a while I have to remind myself, yeah, that was just a nightmare. Like that was not real, and here's the reasons why. And so that's why I've done such a deep dive into history and stuff like that, and all of the theories and all of that. I still find it really interesting too, just on on the intellectual side of things, just uncovering, what were they really doing, just trying to figure it out. I know there's no way we can actually get back to exactly, what it all was, but to think of just the little devices that the writers use that you can see they were trying to cover something up, or, the later gospel writers were trying to cover up things that the earlier gospel writers did, to try to be the more convincing gospel, like Keith was saying, the mimesis and stuff. But yeah, those are the two biggest things, is just the like PTSD and having to remind myself like why this was just a nightmare. And then, yeah, but I could go into like probably 1,000 other topics, of the loss of like my entire community, my entire framework for like thinking about just about every facet of my life, how to deal with money, how to deal with like socializing, how to interact. Yeah, it's just it influenced every single aspect of my life for sure. So yeah,
it's crazy. I feel like in so many ways it really is like, it just kind of, those like scatter plots or whatever that word is, where it just kind of splinters out. You take a word and you think of related words, and then you think of related words. It kind of goes like that. It just like it's spiderwebs out. And
that's the problem, why you get in that feedback loop of like, yeah, you're thinking about all of the different ways that this has affected things. And it's hard to not like get into those downward spirals thinking about that. And so like when I had gone through therapy, something that they had told me, that my therapist had told me was like, and that was like the one time I have gotten therapy, I had to get it after I left because it messed me up so bad when I left. But she said, set a timer and only give yourself that long to think about it. And then tell yourself you are going to move on to something else after that timer's up. Because it's affected so much. You've spent your entire life kind of piling on all these different things, piling on this framework. Christ is the the rock, the foundation. So you've made your whole foundation on this fake thing. It's like you could spend all of your time trying to figure out all of the ways that you've built your life on it, and you could just keep going round and round and round. It is so hard, the spidering out of all of that, like you said.
Yeah, and in many ways, I think too that it amongst all these topics, it fragments you so much. I mean, you get to a point. We talked about the hypervigilance and the scrupulosity a few weeks ago, and just all the ways in which your mind is sort of split in two, whether it's the actual official dualism of mind versus body, separation, or just you're just generally split in all these different ways. Am I good? Am I bad? Am I safe? Am I not? Am I just, even in your theology, am I safe and secure in Christ, or is there a possibility I could fall away? So many
Yeah.
ways in which you just get split all over the place, and you end up just like a lot of deconstruction and reconstruction of yourself ends up really just being a sense of saying, I've got to slowly rebuild myself to the point that I am a person of integrity, where I'm taking away all the bad ideas, and whatever's left, I'm putting it together as one coherent person for the first time. And, a lot of dissociation in that, you're so dissociated and so, so fragmented, and just learning to get over that is a long process. It's a wonderful process, but everything from just your self-talk to your self-hatred to your sexuality stuff to just being able to feel safe and feel happy and being able to rest, not being hypervigilant to just always get something done. So many ways this affects all of us, and all of the parts of us. And I think, at the end of the day, I think a lot of us would argue that so much of this is in many ways related to just one simple question: how do I get someone who is either difficult to deal with or downright abusive to be loving? Whether you're talking about your parents or God, how do I get this abuser to just be nice to me and love me? And we spin our wheels like crazy trying to get abusers to love us from the earliest days, because when you're a kid, that's all you know is, I got to figure out how to tiptoe so they don't hurt me, or do something to jump through hoops so they love
Mhm.
me. And like that's what we're doing. When we become so fragmented in this worldview that
And
all
it's not even just physical harm that you're trying to avoid. You're trying to like avoid I can't say it.
ostraci-
Ostracization.
ostracization. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a hard word for me. And you're trying to avoid the shame. I think the shame is a big thing, like just feeling the deep like shame inside. Like, what if your community knew the questions that you were having, like as a leader and stuff too, like the kids leader and stuff. I'm like, I'm not allowed to be questioning the very foundation of the faith. Like that's oh my goodness, if the parents of the kids that I was watching and teaching, I would never betray their trust and like have questioned things openly in front of their children or anything like that, because I had respect for the fact that this is why they were coming here, kind of thing. I'm not like, I was never trying. I feel like they probably wonder now that I left, were you like sabotaging our children or something, telling them this isn't real. But no, I mean, it was crazy though, because all along I was kind of questioning things in my head, like, is this right? Like, I don't know about teaching them this or whatever. And it just stinks that I didn't listen to those alarm bells, but it's like I couldn't. I was so wrapped up in it. But yeah, it's like while I'm sitting there telling these kids, to place their faith in Jesus Christ, I'm sitting here going, there's some significant contradictions here and problems that like these little Bible stories are completely just glazing over. And it did help me too to see how I was manipulated as a child too, because they really do put forth the glossy version, the neutered version for you. You learn that first, and then as you get older, come the difficult questions. But yeah, sorry, another rabbit trail. Like I said, you could probably go all day.
Yeah, for sure. It's well, I mean, that's why we keep on bringing up all these topics. I think it's the nice thing is that we, by virtue of these live streams, where we can all talk together, a lot of these things we will keep going in and into bigger details. And honestly, as you all talk and share your comments and your your thoughts live here, I'm writing a lot of notes down. I literally, just from what you've shared, I literally just got 15 more ideas for 15 more live streams. So I love how it just, again, it spider webs out, but it's worth, I think to me, it's worth digging into, like saying, okay, well, we just kind of touched on one topic for a millisecond because we said something and then moved on. But like, okay, well, let's get to that next. Like, let's get to that, and it's important because
I know a lot of these things you could definitely dig into deeper, and that's the problem when you are first starting out. It's like you have so many different topics that you really do need to dig into so deeply, and it does fragment you when you're deconstructing, because you're like, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and there's not enough time for you to process everything in order to feel safe, like right away. Like you're going to go through a time where it feels scary and where you don't have all of the questions, but you know that it's not right, but you can't answer everything yet. And you're going to go through that. And the only thing that really helped me through that is just like steadily trying to learn more and more, so I could feel safer in my skin and connecting with other people who were also like, yeah, this is baloney. But at the same time, at the very beginning, I couldn't even connect with people because I thought, you know, anybody who was outside, and that's the beauty of what they do, or the terrible beauty of what they do. They insulate you by making you so afraid to talk to anybody who's not in the religion about the religion, because they tell you that those people are lost and they're, you know, influenced by the devil. So you can't even go through it with other people. You can't trust communities like this. At first, when I first came across your page, Tim, I thought, oh my God, these people are lost and blah, blah. You know what I mean? And that was like way back when I think you first started, around COVID or something. But at first I was like, yeah. And then I like slowly, I kind of started to watch them. I was like, there are some really good points. There are some really good points these people are bringing up. So,
well, that's how I felt about when I was deconstructing and long before my YouTube channel. That's how I felt about like Seth Andrews and Richard Dawkins at the time, and Hitchens and all those other people. Just, you know, so many people bringing up good points, and it's like, you know, Matt Dillahunty, and bringing up all these points and saying like they sound rational and yet they're clearly bad people. You know, they're atheists. But
well, and
anyway.
and I thought that at first, like they're so harsh, they're so like especially Hitchens. I was like, he's so like just mean, and I'm like, you know what? I love that. I love that he does not pull punches with his stuff. Like he never pulls punches, and now it's so cathartic to me as an atheist that he can just call it out like it is without the like trying to be polite about it. But yeah,
I'm sure he'd have a lot to say about our current political situation if you were around. I wish you were. Well, Shell, I appreciate so much you jumping in tonight. It's been awesome. And again, please keep an eye out for the next topic that, you know, hopefully every topic is of interest to you, but for sure the ones that you really feel are red flags for, you know, things you've been through that you'd like to talk about. But is there anything else on your mind tonight?
No, that was it. Thanks for having me on. Yeah,
thank you. I appreciate you jumping on there once you had the freedom to. And again, so glad we got Keith on, and it's so good to have everybody in. And I did just want to mention that you know, just I feel like we're building a community of people that are regulars. I know not everyone's always going to be here because you got stuff to do and kids to take care of and stuff, but I just want to say I appreciate people like you and Keith and Cold Iron Gaming and Philip Greenwood and the other people that are coming on. Noel comes on, other people come on, and it just, you know, Philip Chandler, who I just did an interview with. Like, a lot of people are coming on a regular basis. They're trying to jump on at least once a week, if not several times a week. And I appreciate that so much. And that was one of the hardest parts about the 2 years basically that I had to significantly back away from the channel. And I was still doing a lot, but I wasn't doing anywhere near as much as I had been doing and wanted to do. I had to focus on the kids. I had to focus on the litigation stuff, but it was, you know, custody was an important thing to focus on. The kids needed me, but it broke my heart because I knew there were people who were coming on a regular basis way back when I did it. And then to finally get to a point where I'm like, okay, we're starting up again. And I was kind of thinking, am I ever going to see that dynamic again? And I'm seeing it start to develop where people are like, this is good stuff. This community is meaningful. It means the world to me. It really does. And I know that there's some people that used to be in the live stream all the time that aren't yet, either because they're busy or they haven't, you know, seen that I'm doing it as much again. But I really do hope that this continues to grow. And I appreciate people like you that kind of are sort of in the jumpstart phase of this for me, because I'm trying really hard. I do intend to be here, hopefully, you know, 20 out of 30 days a month, if not more, for the live streams at night. And I hope even if people don't ever jump in, I'm sure there's some people that don't really feel like they want to jump in, but I hope it feels like a safe place just to kind of sit back and think these are good people. These are good people talking about important topics. And even if some of you are just gonna be flies on the walls, it's just not your thing to call in, and that's fine. Just to know that there's people like us who are trying hard to think through these issues, to bring the process of religious trauma to the forefront. And we're probably almost all lay people, so we're just doing our best with what we've got. We're going to people like Andrew Jasko and other people, trying to get the good stuff, trying to get the professionals to give us some information to chew on. But we're still, I think, arguably doing a lot of good work by just being honest and telling our stories.
Oh,
And
absolutely. I think lay people's stories, when it's not like all scripted, or they're not professionals or anything, but it's just people coming on and talking about how they've had these issues. And I think that is so helpful, especially for people just starting out who might not trust professional people who have made it their life to like deconvert people. So this is a really unique thing that you've got going on here. And even when you're not on all the time and stuff like that too, I know like when you were gone dealing with that stuff, I would still go back and like look at some of your old videos, just some old interviews, because you've got so much good stuff out there. So
thank you so much. I'll just say this real quick about the old interviews. I'm really excited because when you look at my channel, I'll keep this really short. I have like a little over 500 videos so far, for like from day one to now, like 500. But I'm trying to get to a point where I'm adding like several hundred more per month eventually. I mean, hopefully even like within the next month or two. So I was thinking, like, if I do this right, it won't double or triple the number of subscribers or watch hours necessarily, unfortunately, but just in terms of the number of videos, there's a lot more out there for people as they do come across the channel to be like, wow, there's like, you guys are tackling all the topics. You aren't just like a one-trick pony, like you're going here and there and here and there. And then hopefully people are like, I need to be a part of this, just because so many of these random topics, they're all part of the healing. And if we're going to heal, you got to kind of pull all the layers back. And I think sometimes too, I've said this before, but it's just finding the vocabulary. Like when someone says, certain words, whether it's poetic or just, prose, you say certain words, certain ways, and someone's like, oh my goodness, that's it. That's exactly what I'm thinking. I could not phrase it, but now you say that, that's exactly where I am. That's exactly what I'm struggling with.
yeah.
And, we're all going to keep struggling to find the words, but somebody somewhere is going to find the right words. And as we all listen to each other and build from this, eventually people are like, there's serious digging here. Like we're not surface level healing. We're trying to go down to, what Andrew Jasko was talking about with the shadow work. We're trying to go back to our childhood. We're trying to go back to the things that indoctrinated us. And hopefully, if we're really honest and really open to good ideas, we'll find ourselves saying like, this is not surface level healing. We are truly healing ourselves individually and as a community. And obviously it's not a replacement for therapy. People need it, and I encourage them to get it, but we can still make a lot of progress in the meantime,
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you, Shel. Appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Thanks so much for having me on. No, that's all I had.
Sounds
but
good.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Thanks again, Shel. All right, and I'll just wrap up here. Cold Iron Gaming. Hey, Tim and Shel. Thanks so much, Cold Iron, for being here. And last one looks like Philip. Knowing thyself and being true to yourself is the key to life, and not all that concocted stuff invented by Christianity or anything else. Good riddance to all that solipsistic and archaic nonsense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely want to move on from those bad ideas. Well, thank you all so much. We went a little bit longer than I thought, but it was so good to be with you all. Again, if anybody wants to join me for one-on-one peer counseling, reach out to me privately. If anybody is able to support me, I desperately need your support. The ways are beneath this video, or reach out to me. And of course, if you want to do an interview and you haven't reached out yet, or we did before, it's just dropped somehow through the schedule, let me know again, bring it back up to the top, and we'll get you on the schedule. I'm looking forward to doing a lot of interviews soon. I've got quite a few scheduled in the next week. It's so good. So good to be able to bring your stories to the forefront. I love it because I get to hear it. I get to obviously host a few of the questions. But now that we're doing live streams for almost all the interviews, I mean, occasionally someone will say, I don't want to do it as a live stream. But for most of them, they're going to be such that you can also ask some questions yourself, and I'll be more focused on them in the comment section, their story. But if I see a good question or comment come up, I'll bring it up. So since we're switching by and large from pre-recorded interviews to live stream interviews, you get the chance to be more interactive with them. So pretty cool stuff. Anyway, thank you all so much. Hope you have a great night. Appreciate it. And I'll be here tomorrow at least once, maybe even twice, maybe even 3 times. Who knows? But appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Bye-bye.